Hi guys, and welcome now to part 2 of this review for the PaiAudio PDM 7 and the Relentless 61T. This is the graph for the Relentless Butterfly 61T with the original tips. As you can see, a nice sub-bass focused with no bleeding to the mids. A very, I mean, it's in terms of the pin again, we're talking about 6 dBs of pin again. And one aspect here that I've noticed lately, and I think it's actually quite an interesting thing to keep in mind, is when and most of the times, when we see certain graphs, we start worrying about it maybe being too dark, too bright, and there are aspects of looking at a graph that can sort of point you in the right direction. And one of the things that I've noticed lately when I'm looking at the graphs and analyzing them and then listening to them is, what is the ratio between 100 hertz and the ratio of the pin again peak? And as you can see, this ratio and the Relentless is, in my opinion, perfect, which thus means then that below 100 hertz, which will be the lowest of the low frequencies, where you have your sub bass and part of the bass, but mainly the rumble, you have that energy there, which is not going to hinder the performance of the mids in any way, and complement and create atmosphere for the upper mids, upper mids, and treble. This is a ratio that I've noticed works very well, and this is not the only IEM that does that. I mean, for example, when you look at the SM4, the Supermix 4, you can also see that we have somewhat of that sort of ratio, although a little bit more elevated, a little bit more energetic there. Let me just actually put the 100 hertz. Okay, let's disregard this here for a second. Okay, 100 hertz, and you can see that the peak is, yes, at 3K, but audibly, when you listen to it, the ratio, that's the audible sensation that you get, is that there's a good balance between these 2 points. So let's for the sake of argument say, let's consider this. Look at the ratio between 100 hertz and where the 2 to 3 kilohertz, which is usually where the peak lies of the pin again, is situated. And that there will, in my opinion, give you straight away a very good idea of the openness of the sound. Is it clear? Is it opened? How much, I would say, resolution there is to a certain extent. And thus, therefore, if the sound is more on the warmer side or overly bright. Okay, another one that also has somewhat of this sort of let's say ratio going is, let me show you here, the JUZEAR Nova. Again, 100 hertz, and if you look there, that 2 to 3K peak area, they're kind of very well related. The peak happening there, and you having the 100 hertz there, with that difference then being culminated by what you have in terms of the bass, as you can see here, this gives a nice ratio. It just makes the sound feel very very audiophile, if you want to put it that way. Okay, anyway, that's just a little side note. So back here to the 61T. It's just a very nice sounding IEM. Okay, I tried it with the different tips, as I said, and with the whiteboard tips, I got this graph. This peak here not being at 8 kilohertz has to do with the tip being a wider bore and thus difficult to insert into the coupler. But it did create a little bit more of a sensation of soundstage, of atmosphere. Okay, but anyway, I will leave it with the OG tip so that we can do the rest of the comparisons. One of the IEMs that I didn't mention in the review, but I will show it to you now, is of course the Nova. And as you can see, you can actually see how interesting the similarity to the two of them is. And actually audibly, there's a lot of similarities there. They do sound very, very similar. Okay, I would say that the Relentless, maybe product of the extra BAs, just sounds a little bit more polished. Okay, that's what I would say. Carrying on then with the IEMs that I selected earlier. This, just here, that's done, Okay, number. Okay, let's show you now the Manga T, as I mentioned. The Manga T, and I said they were very similar sounding, and I think the graph speaks already for itself. If you look at that ratio that once again I was talking about, it's basically the same. You put 100 hertz, and you can see the peak of the pin again basically is equivalent. Okay, you got it there at 4 kilohertz. I don't know how much of that would be realistic, but you can see that this ratio that's struck here on the Mango T2 and what we have in the Relentless 61T is the same sort of idea. Okay, there we go. And that's why they sound so very similar. They sound very, very, very similar. Okay, anyway, continuing here. Number 16. This is the CVJ bidong that in itself, as you can see, the graph doesn't look bad. And it's not that the bidong sounds bad. No, it actually does sound pretty good. But you just notice and it's not in the bass where you pick this up, because as you can see, the bass is actually quite well, it graphs well and actually sounds really good. It's just in the execution of the upper mids and treble where you just find that the bidong is less polished. The 61T is just more elegant in doing things. It just sounds more correct. Let's put it that way. But the bidong again, if you even go and see that same ratio of 100 hertz, and then how the pin again is at that 2 to 3 kilohertz area, you can see very similar. Okay. The next one is the Celeste Relentless. Number 18. There we go. Let me just change the color here of the Relentless so we can see it better. Okay. The Relentless, definitely more V-shaped, a little bit thicker sounding in the bass, well, at least more thicker sounding than what you would think from the graph, but it's fine. But actually up top here, even though we have this rise in this 5, 6, 7K, 8 area, there's actually a lot of similarities there. I think that the main thing here is that this area doesn't sound as energetic as what the graph would lead you to believe, and the bass here is a little bit more mid-bass focused as opposed to sub-bass focused. But overall, the Relentless is not a bad IEM, and I mentioned that in the review. I mean, for the $130 to $140 price that's been asked for it, it is a very solid IEM. That's the reality. Next one is the BGVP, the NS10. The NS10, much like the CVJ bidong, they have a tuning which in itself is not bad. And as you can see, I mean, it's not to be can really criticize the NS10. The NS10's got a little bit more bass than what you would think, but everything sits within a nice tight window. We've got roughly 6 dBs of bass gain, about 6.5 of mids of pinna gain. I don't perceive this area here. I don't really notice this area here too much, and the NS10 actually sounds very solid. It does sound very solid. If anything, there isn't by looking at this, you would think, oh, okay, it's got a little bit of sparkle at the top. It's got, but not as much as you would think. Okay, not as much as you would think. I would even go as far as saying that the NS10's got less sparkle than the bidong. Okay, and if I actually put here the bidong quickly, so you guys can see what I mean. Let me just take away. Although they graph again very similar up top here, the bidong actually has a little bit more sparkle than the NS10. Okay, and I think it's just down to the way that they tuned the NS10 so that we wouldn't feel the aggressiveness of the BAs. Okay, and then finally the Simgot, the Super Mix. Again, same sort of style of tuning. The Simgot is definitely a little bit more energetic in this whole area of the upper mids and treble, and it's noticeable. But I didn't find it to be in any way, something that I would consider wrong. If you are going to look at it in terms of pure sound, yes, probably you would say that it is more colored than what the Relentless is. And finally, I was forgetting. This is the graph for the PaiAudio PDM 7, which I'll then also run through the other graphs with it. So the PDM 7 has got this graph. Again, by looking at the graph, you can be a little bit, oh my God, what is this? It's going to be an absolute mess. I mean, we're talking about a pinna gain of 17 dBs, perhaps, if you're going to consider the absolute peak up there. But in reality, I don't feel that there's this much brightness up top as what the diagram is showing. Yes, it is relatively bass heavy, but what you do notice is that this midsection here is definitely recessed. So when you take it, for example, and you compare it with something like the Relentless, which is also another one of the IEMs here, which has a more V pronounced signature. Although they have got a lot of similarities, as you can see in the graph, the Relentless does sound overall more balanced. It does definitely sound more balanced. And when you obviously you take this the PDM and you compare it with the 61T. The 61T is a more sensible sounding IEM. It's not that the PDM7 is a bad sounding IEM, by no means. By no means. Let me make that perfectly clear. It's just got a very specific crowd of people that will appreciate its tuning. I personally find the tuning entertaining and fun, but it's not a tuning that I would want to listen to if I was going to try and find the ultimate in terms of detail, or if I was wanting to really, let my female vocals stand out in a manner which I like them to stand out with, with certain vocals, obviously, certain artists. Sorry. Anyway, let me just continue here showing you the PDM. The PDM compared with the Simgot. That's the graph. Again, as you can see, there are some similarities to a certain extent, but it's the recess of this middle part here of the frequency range, which basically closes down the whole sound. And when I say there are some similarities, I just want to make clear that you don't feel this area as being energetic as what the graph shows, and I think that's down to the fact that you've got a lot more mid-bass energy. Or rather, the mid-bass energy that it's shown in the graph is very much there. Okay, while you look at the other graphs like the KCR of the SM4 and you see it's basically flat by 200 hertz. No, there's still plenty of energy there. I mean, we're talking about the 200 hertz. We have a difference of roughly 5 dBs between one and the other, which is easily noticeable. Okay, so Simgot is done. The NS10, I mean, I think the graph speaks for itself. The NS10 again ends up having a more balanced signature because you don't notice this recess being as pronounced as what it is on the case of the PDM7. But again, different styles of tuning. It's like I say sometimes. As long as it's well done, I don't have any issues. And the PDM7, for the way that it was tuned, I think it's fine. It was tuned to be like this. And it sounds fine. In my opinion, it sounds fine. It's not supposed to be, at least that's my perception, it's not supposed to be a audiophile presentation. It's supposed to be a fun and engaging presentation. And with genres like EDM, it does really, really well, where this whole energy does shine. Okay, so that's that. I've shown you the Relentless, the Bidong I've shown you. Compared to the Mangot, I think, again, very much self-explanatory. The Mangot is just, as neutral as can possibly be. We're talking about it, the whole thing sits within 76, so 7 dBs to the bass gain, and we're talking about 5 dBs of pinna gain. So for the mids, I mean, phenomenally well tuned, in my opinion. I think honestly, the Mangot T2 is still a very solid IEM by today's standards. And yeah, I guess I've shown you all the JUZEAR I've shown you, and I've also shown you the Truth-Ears, but I'll just show it to you again. There's the JUZEAR again. JUZEAR, sorry, the Truth-Ears, the Nova. That's it. It's not really that any of these IEMs is badly tuned or wrongly done or this or that. It's just that they've been tuned in very different manners, and depending on how versatile you want the IEM to be in terms of genres that it can play, and depending on whether you want the IEM to be more audiophile correct or more colored, these are the things that will show up. Okay. Anyway, guys. As always, like and subscribe, and if there's any questions or anything you want to ask me, please feel free to do so. Take care now. Bye-bye.